Okay, once again, hello everybody. My name is Evgeny Usachov, and today our webinar, which is actually a webinar in our joint teacher training program between Moscow International Academy and another company. Actually, it is the 7th webinar in the series. We have the last one left in May, which will be dedicated to teacher professional development. But today we are focusing on communication skills development, in particular, receptive skills development. As in the previous webinar, we talked about productive skills. And today we are focusing on receptive skills development. My talk will be dedicated to the issue of boosting students' reading skills. Okay, so let's start with a question. Yeah, to what extent do you believe a reading skill or skills are important in English language teaching? So, if you think it's important, put 1+. If you think it's very important, put 2+. Okay, let's see how important these skills are, do you think? Okay, Maria said very important. Okay. What about the others responses? 1+, it's important. Minus, not important. Double+, very important. Okay, Galina put 3+. Extremely important. Yeah, extremely important. Okay. Good. Today we'll be talking about, say, boosting reading skills development. And in my talk, I'm not going to cover, say, the basics of teaching reading. Yeah. So mostly we will be focusing on, say, B1+ level students' skills development, and maybe some techniques, and in particular some strategies, reading strategies, which our students are supposed to possess, right? But before we get started, just to let me know what age groups do you teach? Just tell me, put it in the chat. What age group reading development are you most interested in? I mean, levels, A1, B1, C1, whatever, okay? Or maybe the groups you are teaching and you are facing some challenges in developing reading skills. Just put the level in the chat. B2, okay. Yulia said B2, okay. We're waiting to other participants' responses. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll repeat my question. Which level you are teaching right now, maybe, or you're planning to teach? So which level students do you consider at the current moment to develop their reading skills in? Yeah, for instance, you are teaching B1 students and you are facing some challenges in that, or B2 or C1, or say maybe A2. Okay, I'll also B2. Okay. Mm-hmm. B2, mostly B2. Okay. And one more question. What challenges are you facing? Students are good enough. Yeah, they are B2 level, which is very good. And still you are facing some challenges. What kind of challenges are they? Grammar. Okay. Grammar in the texts, in different texts. Okay. Thank you, Allah, for your response. Mm-hmm. Anything else? Okay. Up to now, it's just B2 level, mostly grammar, and when you lack of motivation, yeah, very typical challenge. Yes, yes, lack of motivation. Can't agree more with you, Irina. Okay, let's turn to my presentation as we're talking about boosting reading skills today. Here it is. Natalia also answered, they know much and may not need to want to progress. Yeah. Again, it's sort of motivational issue. Okay, can you see my screen? So we'll be talking about boosting students' reading skills today. So at the same time, I'm looking at your messages in the chat. Okay, Olga said somebody can't read properly. Okay. And it's a very big issue what reading properly means. Okay, I suppose I'll touch upon some issues today. Okay, I'd like to start with a simple question, yeah, which is pretty relevant when we teach reading. What are the main reasons, or what are the reasons for reading in our everyday life? Can you just type some ideas for that? Why do we read, or why do our students read? What are the reasons, main reasons? Getting information, yeah, very important reason. Anything else? New info. For pleasure, Natalia said, yes, we may read for pleasure as well. Exam purposes, exam preparation, Anastasia, right? Specific information. So we're reading for specific information. Natalia, can you specify what you mean? Specific information. Okay, while you're typing your responses, I'd like to show you the first slide. So in which we have first reasons for reading and particular examples, okay? For instance, it's very common that we read for everyday activities. For instance, if we travel around the city, it may be reading a bus timetable. Yeah, if we travel somewhere far, we can read again this timetable of flights. Yeah. Another example may be reading instructions on a food package. You've bought something which was delivered, or you bought something in a shop, in a store, and you're not sure how to cook something, for instance, yes, and you have a food package and some instructions, or sometimes just we are reading labels, right, to understand what a particular dish contains. Yeah, it's not to some extent it's not a serious reading, but it's necessary. It's our everyday activity somehow. So sometimes we can read a sign in an elevator. You're traveling up to the top floor, and maybe there are some adverts or posters, and we can read that, or instructions in an elevator. Just a few examples here, you see. Secondly, as you mentioned, we can read for learning about things, such as we go online to get information about someone or something, some events. And sometimes, you know, you get a recipe of the internet for cooking reasons. Yeah. I believe that many of you read some cookery blogs or things like that, just to cook something new, something delicious. And at times we can just read about a travel destination. Yeah. For instance, these days within Russia, but still. Then there are some reasons, and the next one is reading for life purposes. It may be hobby magazines and For instance, if you are learning to drive, you can drive manual, driving manual before taking driving test, or maybe, you know, this tests, driving tests, mostly which check traffic rules, things like that. And for life purposes, it may be reading membership requirements of a gym. For instance, if you're planning to sign a contract with a fitness club or gym, right? Of course, we read for pleasure and leisure, such as maybe we read a romance novel, or to some extent, maybe someone reads a religious text, on many other activities, leisure magazines, whatever. Of course, we read for study purposes, such as reading articles, scientific articles, might be reading textbooks, so teachers' books, and maybe we search some information in the internet for studying purposes, and of course for work purposes as well, such as reading reports, emails, instructions, whatever not. Okay, let's move on. In terms of reading skills development, I suppose you're familiar with key reading skills such as, say, skimming, scanning, reading for detail. But here is a longer list that we actually develop in our students, or develop together with our students, some sort of skills. Yeah. For instance, we can read to find facts and details in a particular text. Then skimming a text quickly just for gist, to get the general understanding of the text. Reading to obtain new ideas and information, as you mentioned before, it's one of the reasons for reading. Sometimes we read to connect information from different sources. Yeah, you know, these days events happen too fast, and we badly need some reliable sources of information. That's why we can read different, say, blogs, social media posts, or whatever, or just some kind of official information. Yeah. So we read just to connect information from different sources and maybe make some conclusion about what's going on, right? As well, we can read as a preparation for writing or discussing a topic, and our students can do that before writing something, say your coursework at university or postgraduate studies department, or before writing, say, an article for the magazine, teaching magazine, whatever, or before we discuss something, we read. Yes, if we are taking part in kind of discussion, a round table, yeah, we get ready by reading some information for that particular discussion. Another option here is reading critically. Yeah, for instance, if we develop in our students this critical thinking skills, yeah, we are just teaching them to read everything critically, analyzing information, making correct conclusions, things like that. And of course, a kind of reading skill is reading for main ideas. Oh, it's quite close to reading for gist. Well, okay, let's move on. These are the skills we're supposed to develop. And as you see, they are functional skills, not just sub skills as grammar accuracy, yeah, or phonology, or vocabulary extension. Mostly here we're talking about communicative skills development. Right. Okay, so my talk will be mostly dedicated to fluency development in reading, and on this slide you can see different characteristics of fluent reading. Yeah, when students are, yeah, you mentioned B1, B2, C1, they are pretty fluent, or supposed to be. So what we should consider, what are the main characteristics of such kind of reading? First of all, it's language level. as we mentioned earlier. So language level matters in this regard. So the higher the level, the easier it is supposed for students to read different types of texts. That matters, exactly. Secondly, it's the content what students are reading. Yeah, what the text is about, how difficult it is in terms of the topic, in terms of the field of study, because you understand that we can read for general English skills development or for specific English specific purposes. For instance, if our students, students at different universities, and they badly need reading for management or for marketing or for teacher qualification, different types, and of course we should consider how difficult the content of the text is. The second issue to look at is speed. It's actually pretty controversial. So some teachers believe the faster a student reads, the more skillful this person at reading. But it may be quite controversial, again, depending on the text the students read. Of course, there are some standards in terms of how fast students to read. Yeah. Can you quote some, maybe some figures? Yeah, for instance, you say normal reading speed is that number of words per minute. Yeah, low is that number, or high level of high speed reading, let's say. Okay, can you just type in the chat the figures which you have in your mind, or you can just consider if we talk about, say, normal speed of reading? What are the figures? How many words are supposed to be read a minute? In Russian, 120 per minute. Thank you, Olga. Natalia says 200 words a minute. Okay. Any other figures? 250, asks Anastasia. Okay. Yeah, for low levels. Yeah. I would say research shows, yes, that say normal speed of reading, it's between 200 and 250 words per minute. If a student reads more slowly, that means the person is either at a low level or the skills are not developed well enough. Increased speed of reading comes to the figure, say 300, 350 words per minute. And mostly you understand that the speed of reading is closely related to the type of reading we are practicing. Yeah, if it's scanning, of course, the pace of reading is much higher. The speed of reading is much higher, say 300, maybe 350. If it's just reading for, yes, the speed is not, Olga makes a remark. Yes, speed is not that much important. The main thing is to get the gist correctly. Yeah. Yeah, and Natalia, also thank you for your comment. You say individual peculiarities such as attention span. Yeah, they probably do. Yes, of course they do matter. And you see, these are just average figures. And yes, Olga absolutely correctly mentioned that it's not the speed we're aiming at. This is the comprehension or the reason for reading. Yeah. Okay, but sometimes teachers practice reading for a particular time, or timing students when they read, especially in, say, primary schools, and it's like a speed test reading. Okay, it's just a test how fast a pupil student just reads. In some situations, it may be pretty stressful, yeah, especially if students are struggling with their reading, or say have dyslexia or some other peculiarities, I would say. Okay. Yeah, so we can sum up that speed depends on the purpose for reading. Yeah, if it's just reading for detailed comprehension, the speed is supposed to be much lower. Okay, selective attention, it's another characteristic. So that means when a student reads, what sort of information is he or she supposed to take into consideration? Is it just detailed, general content of the text, or maybe say some figures, facts, or details, right? So it actually being fluent in reading imposes, so the person is pretty selective in terms of information he or she gets. Yes, it's called selective attention. The next issue is unknown vocabulary. Yeah, some of you just mentioned in the text that one of the problems may be students are not aware of the vocabulary they come across in the text. And you know, there are different strategies, of course, developing guessing skills. Yeah, if you don't know the word, look around it. Yes, what comes before, what comes after, and try to guess. It doesn't work all the time, but developing guessing skills, it's pretty vital, not only in reading, but as well in listening, for instance. And it helps students find a solution if they don't really know a particular item, vocabulary item. Yes, unknown vocabulary. Again, if we are talking about fluent reading and texts, there is some statistics that says so these texts are supposed to contain not more than 10 unknown vocabulary items. I mean 10% of vocabulary items. Yeah, so prediction is the next issue, next characteristic of a fluent reader. That means before reading, this learner just thinks what might the text be about, yeah, or just by some features of the text, the person may predict what it can be about just reading the title. Yeah. And for teaching that, I think you practice and you use different pre-reading activities. Yeah. Can you just type in the chat what pre-reading activities do you usually use before reading the text? One I just mentioned, it's just guessing the content of the text by title, by reading a title. Discussing some pictures. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Anastasia. Some situations, guessing the answers. Yeah, if there are questions in the pre-reading part. Okay, Olga. Okay, just commented, quoting Penny Earl, who said, don't play, we're not supposed to play with prediction. Anyway, some predicting activities, figuring out the meaning from the title. Yeah, that's right. And these visuals, or maybe some questions, some vocabulary at the pre-reading stage may help students to read more effectively. Okay, thank you. So mostly it's to get some background knowledge about the topic, about maybe the text title, things like that, as well. Revise some vocab, which relates. Yeah, another good activity, guessing true or false to check with the text later. Yeah, some statements or some questions before the text. Okay, they just help develop these prediction skills. Okay, and the next issue is motivation. As you mentioned, some of you mentioned or commented in the text, motivation is really vital, especially at high level. So we'll be talking a little bit about that, how to motivate and how to consider motivation. Of course, again, can you type, what do you think can motivate a student to read the text? Of course, it can be a teacher who just asks, okay, you're supposed to read the text. What other factors may affect students' motivation? Competition, yeah, right. Topics related to their life, yes. Reference to some personal experience, yeah. Correct. Anything else? Another question right here. What motivates you to read a particular book, text, article? Are they the same factors you mentioned here before, or is there anything else that can motivate you to read something? Interest, yeah, mostly, yes. Mostly out of interest to read something. Okay, I choose them myself, okay. Good answer, Natalia, yeah. They are not compulsory, they are optional. Yes, I can pick up the topics or articles or magazines, whatever, social media posts which I like, which interest me. Or out of necessity, Anastasia, yeah, mentioned, yes. For instance, I have to read something for exam, for a test, yeah. Or for my, I don't know, for my meeting, staff meeting, whatever. Mostly, yes, it's the interest which some challenges may be popular, right? Okay, so the thing is, yeah, there may be a reading challenge such as 100 books a year. Okay, people set up challenges for themselves or participate in some reading competitions. And of course, yeah, it's a good way. It's a good way just to read a lot and to read something which is useful or which have practical outcomes. That's why, of course, the texts we're supposed to provide to our students to read should be age-related, should be interest-related, yeah, and should, again, motivate them to read it, yeah. Intriguing title or some pictures which actually may raise interest in what they are reading. Okay, I'll mention a few course books later on, which I use to develop reading skills. They are not just general course books, but books or series to develop reading skills. I'll mention them. But anyway, thank you for your responses. Thank you. The next here is purpose. Yeah, purpose for reading. Very important thing, because again, as we mentioned earlier, we can read for different purposes. Yeah. And if you are a fluent reader, you clearly understand what your purpose of reading is. And different reading strategies. Yes, we have to mention them. I'll move on and actually touch upon the issue of strategies later on. Okay, can you add anything to this list of characteristics of a fluent reader, fluent reading here? May I miss out something? I suppose these are the main ones. Okay, let's move on. So here are some tips for students when they deal with reading. So especially in terms of reading strategies. And let's have a closer look at what is mentioned here. Okay. Firstly, I suppose you quite agree with that. If you aren't familiar with the content, find something out about it before you read the text. Yeah. For instance, maybe a good tip, especially if the text is specific or dedicated to a particular issue or particular field. So yeah, For instance, imagine you're supposed to read the book about, say, nuclear energy, for instance. Yeah. So I don't think there are many people here who are experts in this field. Yeah. Or I don't know, archaeology. Yeah. It's safer topic. Yes. Archaeology. Yeah. So before we read it, and the text may be specific about some discoveries. Yeah. Or something found in a particular area. Yeah, if we are not experts, of course, we need some basic facts about that. Yeah, or if it's specific text, some maybe basic vocabulary for that. So it's a good way to find out before reading the text. Again, we can use it as a home assignment. For instance, we say that in the next. Okay, Arsen, good afternoon. Nice you joined us. Okay, for instance, as a home task, you may ask students to do some kind of web quest or find some information on the net about the topic which was supposed to be studying or considering the next lesson. Yeah. Okay, so it may be history related, geography related, and still it will be easier for them to understand maybe the text we'll provide them at the lesson. So second tip is here, read the whole chunks of meaningful text. So not single words, but word combinations, right? Of course, it's a kind of sub-skill which is supposed to be developed, but still, if we focus them on some chunks in the text and then practice these chunks reading, I would say, it will give them a more meaningful picture of the text they are reading rather than individual words. But it's, it's integrated skills development. So when we teach them vocabulary and then we focus to reading, or we turn to reading, of course, if they don't come across vocabulary chunks, it will be pretty hard for them to find them in the text. Okay, next one. Try not to vocalize. Pronounce the words in your head as you read. That may be sort of controversial. Do you think it's a good idea or not so good idea? And maybe do you vocalize words when you read? Again, it's about fluent reading, not just beginning reading or pre-intermediate reading. What do you feel about that? Vocalizing words. Yeah, Natalia says yes. Do it for concentration. Yeah, good idea to vocalize. Yeah, especially if it's about reading aloud activity. Yeah, depends, Anastasia mentioned, not as a rule. Sometimes when it's pretty difficult to concentrate. Yeah, I think it may help, yes, for concentration reasons. Okay, so the next is pretty obvious. Focus on information that is vital for understanding. Yeah, keep in mind the purpose of reading. Feel free to skip parts of the text that you find are not necessary for understanding. Yeah. So again, keeping in mind the purpose, just general understanding of the text or some particular details. Yeah, we can skip some part of the text because it's not essential for understanding. Okay, then where possible, try to guess unknown words from context. We mentioned that point. It's sort of guessing strategy, which helps a lot. Use the dictionary only when absolutely necessary. Yeah. Yes, using dictionaries for understanding, for comprehension, not for translation reasons. So what's your attitude to that? So do you think using dictionaries is a good idea when students deal with a text, or it's not a good one? Yeah, because they can turn to dictionary every time they come across a new word, and it's not a fluent reading. Where do you stand on that? Just put your ideas in the chat. And do you practice using dictionaries in your lessons when you deal with reading? Mhm. Yes, when reading for study, dictionary is a must, Olga says. Okay. Okay. No. Alla, no. Natalia says, I use text as sources of vocabulary, but after reading tasks. Yeah, it might be a good approach. Yeah. It's okay, Yulia says. Okay, so yes, as you see, some teachers just practice using dictionaries. I think it depends on the stage of, I would say, learning. Yes, maybe low levels, and there are some dictionaries which say have essential vocab, and even on the title of the dictionary we say dictionary for beginners. Yeah. And another good issue to discuss, if you do use dictionaries, are they bilingual or monolingual? Because using a dictionary which is monolingual, again, may be helpful, just developing students' vocabulary and understanding, both. Monolingual. Okay, okay. Yeah, so some, I would say, not so positive things. Yeah, of course, it depends on the level. Yeah. Some things which can, say, hinder reading skills development is just if students, every time they come across a new word, turn to a dictionary. Yeah. Can you imagine if the text contains lots and lots of unknown words on a single page, and a student just turns to the dictionary all the time. So there are two big problems. First of all, the text is too difficult. Maybe you've given your students an authentic text and they are not ready to read it. Yeah. On the other hand, the level of students in terms of reading is not high enough. Yes, I agree, Natalia. Yes, the choice of text was wrong. Okay. As I said earlier, just up to 10% of unknown words are supposed to be included in a text if it's not an authentic one. Okay. So depends on the purposes of reading and depends if we are planning to develop their, say, vocabulary skills as well. Yeah. And yeah, ideally, if we give a characteristic of fluent reading, so it's not supposed to, or dictionaries are not supposed to be used. Okay, sorry, then there was one more point. And be aware of your purpose in reading. Yeah. Especially if it's not reading for, say, study purposes. Again, we should be absolutely clear, or our students should be absolutely clear. So what the purpose of reading is. Yeah. Okay. Sometimes they just do not understand. Okay. So there are some procedures which actually are based on some research, and you see the reference. It's taken from Reading in a Second Language book published by Cambridge University Press. The first procedure is called KWL. For instance, it's know, want to know, learned. And you see what it means. So the reader looks at the title of topic of a kind of information or informative text, notes what they or he or she already know and what they want to know, and expects to learn from this text. And after reading, they make some notes or note what new information they've learned. And it's a short and simple procedure that is very easy to implement in the classroom. Yeah. Okay. I don't know something I want to know, and then I just reflect on what I've learned. It's one procedure. The second one is, you see, it's like a code, CQ3R, which actually stands for survey, question, read, recall, review, from the same source. So by survey, we mean here skimming through the title and as well main headings, illustrations, and maybe taking just a brief glance at the main points in the text, not reading it carefully. And then this survey is followed by or accompanied by a kind of question or questions, which actually is what questions occur to the reader about the text or its topic or writer. So I look through this, and then there is a question in my mind, in the student's mind. Okay, some question related to the text. So is it about a particular area, or what can I learn from this text, or what is the writer's position? It's called by question. And then there is a reading stage. So actually the reader goes through the text more thoroughly, at the same time bearing in mind the question asked previously, or some questions. After that, the next stage called recall. That means they check that the reader can remember the main points made. Okay, and finally there is a review stage in which the reader rereads and reviews the content of the text. I believe this kind of procedure deals mostly with more complicated texts or text for specific reading for specific purposes. So it as you see, involves reading and at the same time some other actions or activities just to review and to recall what has been read. Okay, and getting back to the issue of reading strategies, I've got some examples here. Look, by reading strategies, we mean, or we consider, yes, it depends on the kind of text students read, how familiar they are with the topic, the difficulty level, and their purpose in reading a particular text. And you see some types of questions here, which may be, which may be asked to a fluent reader or readers at B1+ levels. So what's the purpose in reading this text? Am I reading it for pleasure, or am I reading it to keep up to date on current events, or will I need this information later? So this sort of questions. What kind of text is this? Is it just an advert, a report, a news article, or some kind of text? Again, it helps us some understanding if a student possesses this strategy or has skills in that, it will simplify to them when they deal with the text itself. What's the writer's purpose? Is it to persuade, to entertain, or to inform the reader? Again, we understand maybe the plot of the text much better. What kind of information do I expect to find in the text? Again, it's also we take into consideration when we're talking about reading strategies. Well, what do I already know about texts of this kind, and how are they usually organized? Again, it's like the structure of the text, which students are supposed to be aware of, especially if they are fluent readers. And maybe some key questions. How should I read this text? Should I read it to find specific information or for main ideas? Should I read it carefully to focus on the details? It's my reading strategy. There are two more points here to consider. What linguistic difficulties does the text pose or contain? How can I deal with unfamiliar vocabulary, complex sentences, and lengthy paragraphs? And what's my opinion about the content of the text? So there is a keynote here. Appropriate reading strategies are selected in response to the questions we've just seen or discussed, right? A question to you related to reading strategies. Why do you think it's important to develop reading strategies when we teach reading? Can we avoid reading strategies and deal with texts without them? What do you think? No. Olga says no. Okay. Let's. Chaos in minds. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I agree, Anastasia. Yes, they raise readers' efficiency. There is no other there is hardly ever or any other meaningful way of teaching reading, Natalia says. Yes, can't agree more. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and let's turn, I have just a couple of minutes to finish my talk, at some examples of reading strategies or activities at different stages. Just a second. Yeah, for again, a question just to reflect. Are there any strategies you can think of which are specific to reading texts online? Because texts online are pretty specific. So social media texts, posts, comments, and things like that. Again, it's a big issue what strategies will students need to deal with such kind of texts. Okay, I also would like to point out some strategies important when we prepare our students or students prepare for the exams. First of all, some general strategies in terms of reading, so which are mentioned in many exam preparation materials. So read the title and any subheading and skim the text rapidly to get a general sense of what it's about and how it's organized. Yeah, some general strategy. Or read the instructions carefully before you begin completing the task. I suppose you've experienced many times that your students don't read instructions carefully, and that's why they make lots of mistakes. If we deal with multiple choice questions related to testing reading skills, so for each question, read the stem and locate the relevant part of the text. Yeah, you know, if it's multiple choice activity. Or try to complete the sentences or answer the question in your own words, yeah, before you turn to the text. Or look at the 4 options and decide which one is closest to your answer, possible answer, right? And if you're not sure of the answer, try to eliminate the ones that can't be correct. And in terms of gap text activities, yeah, which are quite common in our national exam, Cambridge exams, international exams, yeah. So there are some strategies here. Read the main text carefully for meaning and get a general idea of the text structure. And then just look how these ideas develop. Are the tenses here important? Or read the text around each gap carefully and mark words that could refer to the missing paragraphs. Yeah? And try to predict what kind of information is missing. Okay. Or read the extracted paragraphs and look for topic links, grammatical links such as tenses, pronouns, articles, linkers, or just lexical links, say parallel phrases with the main text. Yeah. I would say find the evidence in the text. And read the whole text again in sequence. Does it make sense? Yeah, these are just some examples of tips we can provide for our students when they deal with different exam task types in terms of reading. Okay. And the last one is multiple matching. You know, in some cases, there is a multiple matching activity. So, and you see these strategies here, reading questions and marking keywords, which is essential skills. What kind of skill? Yes, read through the text section by section. So some students prefer that approach. Use parallel phrases and ideas in the question and text to help you find information you need. Read the section of text carefully to make sure it has exactly the same meaning as the question. Quite common approach. And if you're unsure, go on the text. Go on to the text, to the next question, sorry. It will be easier to answer when they have dealt with more questions. Yeah. Again, if you are using exam preparation books, these tips are typically in the book itself, or the teacher can provide these tips. But still, it refers to exam strategies, and they are vital, especially if we deal with format exams, yes, international or national exams. Okay, I'm coming to the end of my presentation. So what I'd like to mention as well, Some sources I used for today's preparation. Yeah, first of all, there is a book called ETpedia. It's a series of Pavilion Publishing House. This particular one contains 100 ideas for English language teachers. Yeah, I picked up some of the ideas from that. Another one is called How to Teach Reading Like a Pro. Again, it's a selection of different tips, strategies for teachers, right? And it's actually a kind of a book on the resource Busy Teacher. Yeah. And the course book by National Geographic Learning, which I used with my teenage students, that is called 21st Century Reading. So the book develops reading skills. The texts are really interesting for the, say, age group 16 plus, right? And it helps to develop different strategies by many kind of exercises. I recommend you visiting the corresponding website, National Geographic Learning. If you just Google it, you'll find. And a perfect series, multi-level series, is called Reading Explorer, also by National Geographic Learning. You see it's 5 levels, foundations, 6 and all foundations, and 5 level up to, say, B2 including, and they are purely dedicated to reading skills development. As you see, exciting topics. So amazing photos which raise interest. So I recommend you trying it one day. So thank you very much for listening to me. If you have any questions, I would be more than happy to answer them. If not, just place them in the chat. Yes, the recording will be available, of course. Sure. Okay. And one more thing I'd like to mention. It relates to certificates you're supposed to get. So if you are eager to get your electronic certificate after each webinar, you should ask Galina, who will be the next speaker, and this certificate will be issued. Galina, right? Am I right?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Hello. Yeah, that's true. We send all the certificates upon request, so you need to contact us at the end of my presentation. There will be the slide with all the contact details, and just one request: please write your names and surnames in English.
Yeah. If you would like to get more than just a certificate, I invite you to join our teacher training course, which actually contains the recordings of the webinars and some online activities on our educational platform, Moscow International Academy. I'll place this link in the chat after I finish. Yeah. And what do you have there? Apart from having these recordings, you will have the tasks. This is an example of the task. It's for the first recording. If you remember, our first webinar was dedicated to course book selection, and you have different types of activities. So you have some questions on which you base your essay. You can use a reflect option or design option, or there's the third option, which is not in the screen. So you've got some input, and then you're supposed to provide a writing assignment. Yes. So the tutor will check it at the end of this course. You will be granted удостоверение о повышении квалификации установленного образца. 72 hours. So if you are interested in that, just there will be a contact information. You can just drop a line to me. Here is my email address. Or you can apply to my manager. So this is the email, which is cdo@mmamos.ru. Okay, and the corresponding website. will provide you with all necessary information. Okay, thank you for listening to me, and it's time to give the floor to Galina.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, good afternoon, dear colleagues. I'm very, very glad to see you. So thank you very much, Evgeny, for your really, really interesting talk. I guess that now, if you, like, I mean, that if our colleagues, have some doubts, then like they no longer have any doubts and have a lot of interesting and practical ideas. So thank you very much. So then today, we will I will be presenting my talk on actually productive skill, so writing. So our previous session was on listening and speaking, and well, today we we have discussed reading, and then I will talk about writing. We will discuss like how we should organize our writing lessons, and how we can motivate our students to write, and in general, like what writing is. And I have a question to our dear participants. So can you please write a plus if teaching writing, developing students' writing skills is part of your teaching routine? Okay, thank you. Good, good. Okay, yeah, nice to see. Yeah, and also, okay, yeah, thank you. Oh, well, 2 pluses, definitely part of the routine. And then put a plus, or you may just write yes or no, if you and your students enjoy it. Let's agree that it's either yes or no, yes/no. Okay, if okay, like both you and your students enjoy it. Okay, plus minus question mark. Not really. Okay. Yeah, I see. So not really, I guess, because writing is sometimes considered to be a pretty boring, skill, and like writing activities seem to be pretty boring, and demanding. Yes, I agree with you. Yeah. Okay. So time consuming. Oh yes, it can take ages. True. So let me share my presentation with you. But I guess, Evgeny, I will need your help. So can you please make me a co-host so that I can do it? Okay, good. Thank you. Well, so okay, I hope that you can see my presentation well. Before we get to some details, I would like to just briefly have an overview. So overview of what we actually do when we either learn or teach a language, any language. Then we go in a few directions, and the main directions are the following. We develop students' awareness of language systems, grammar, lexis, phonology, and discourse. And we develop their language skills, receptive skills, reading and listening, like we receive information, and productive skills, speaking and writing. So we produce some language, when we speak or when we write. Of course, it's not the complete, list of things that we do develop, because we definitely develop students' awareness of the world culture. We do develop their 21st century skills, mediation skills, which are now part of the Common European Framework of Reference. And we do like many other things, but the 2 main directions are these ones. And writing itself is a productive skill. When we produce something like some texts, we use all our language resources to express our ideas, and also we code some information as well as our opinion and attitude. Yeah, and so we as writers code it and readers decode it. Yeah, there is this eternal, game between a writer and a reader. A writer codes some information and the reader decodes some information. And well, it may make both reading and writing pretty challenging. And we use our language resources that we have. And of course, like when our students write some texts, we can clearly see what language they are attempting, like what language resources they need now at this stage. So that's why analyzing your students' writing works can be very effective, yeah, and pretty interesting in order to see like what else they need. And when we write any texts, we should remember, I would call them pillars of writing, which you can actually see in assessment criteria for writing works in all sort of exams. Yeah, and well, let me show them. Well, the first pillar, yeah, when we write any text, it's not just a shopping trolley where you just put everything. Yeah, it's not a text. So each text has its own structure depending on the genre. Yeah, so we choose the structure, and then we have a few more, yeah, pillars, yeah, like key features. Can you guess, like, what do you think may go next? Yeah, what can be the other like characteristics or pillars, like fundamental characteristics of any writing? So when we write, in other words, what should we actually keep in mind? So I'd like to hear from you. Yeah, so structure or structure is not only like how we organize our text, like in paragraphs, yeah, but it's also discourse management, yeah, how we organize ideas, how they flow. Yeah, so anything else? Okay. No, let me also share one more idea. So second is information. Yeah, so when we write any text, we have some prompts. Yeah, like if it's a task which is assigned in the course book, yeah, by the course book, then there are usually some prompts, some clues, and so on. Yeah, and when we brainstorm our ideas, when we are preparing for writing, then we need to know like what sort of information we need to include. And actually that can be a stumbling stone in many cases for the students. Yeah, like they don't know what they can write about. Yeah, I guess that you have faced this issue. Yeah, and also your students have like, I don't know what to write about. And then in this case, we should always refer to the task, yeah, to the prompts which are provided there. They can really help. And the other way around, sometimes students have too many ideas to share, and some of the ideas are not relevant. So that's why when we are selecting information that we will include in our text, we need to make sure that it's relevant information, and that the ideas which we provide, they are justified. Yeah, it's not again a shopping trolley. Yeah, and so we have some follow-up to our topic sentences or key ideas. Then one more important characteristic is style or register. Yeah, so we may need to produce some formal text, or the other way around, an informal email, yeah, informal texts. And then keeping the register in mind, yeah, we need to decide like what sort of information we include and what the structure may be of the text. Then one more Yeah, so any guesses from you? So like what else we should keep in mind when we write a text? Okay. So reader, yeah, as there is this eternal, game, ping pong, between a writer and the reader. Of course, we need to understand like who the reader is. So if we write an informal email, our reader is our maybe friend. Yeah. If we're writing an essay, then who is the reader? By the way, if we write an essay. So who is the reader? Teacher. Yeah, thank you, Natalia. Examiner. Yeah. Okay. Peers sometimes. Yeah, it depends. Yeah, on the task. Yeah. And as you see, so like when we realize who the reader is, yeah, it definitely directly affects the choice of the register, yeah, information as well. Okay, yeah, thank you. And last but not least, actually, these ideas are not anyhow, ranked or prioritized. No, they are all equally important. So last but not least, it's the purpose, like why we're writing the text. Yeah, so what is the communicative aim, let's say? Yeah, so and purposes really can vary. So maybe we write a text in order to share our ideas, or we inform readers, or we want to manipulate a reader. Yeah, we want to make them think this or that way, or we want to convince them that like our opinion is right. Yeah, you see, and so the purpose actually affects everything. Yeah, so style or register, then information that we include, yes, some lexical maybe resources, yeah, and it may affect also the structure of our text. And as you know, as you see, like these key ideas are somehow related to and reflected in the assessment criteria. They may have different names, yeah, they may be combined, and they can be more detailed definition and so on, but these are the pillars. Like when we write any text, we should keep it in mind. So, and then as I didn't actually see quite a lot of responses, yeah, when I was talking about it. So can you please write a plus if it's new information for you, plus, minus, yeah, if it's like relatively new, or like you are already aware of it. Yeah, so I need your reactions. Yeah, plus if it's new information, plus, minus, if not. Okay, yeah, good. Thank you, Anastasia. Kind of aware. Okay, good. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you for your responses. Yeah. So, and actually, when just sharing my experience with you, when I presented to my students, yeah, they realized that writing is not that hard. Yeah, writing is not that you get a task, get, for example, a heading of the text that you need to write, and then no prompts, no help, no support, and then write something. No, they understand that there is something behind it. Okay, then let's move on, and we need to see like how we can practically integrate it all into our regular lessons. And so we, when we teach and when we develop writing skills, of course, our lessons have a few key stages. Yeah. And so ideally, if we have a lot of time, yeah, and if it's a thoroughly planned lesson on the one hand, or if it's the lesson aiming at maybe introducing the ways to write a text for the first time, then like we will go through all these stages. So what I mean, first we plan our ideas. Yeah, so we brainstorm the information that we should include. We plan how we will organize them and so on. then we make a draft. Yeah, so first draft, like the text, we then need to review it. Yeah, when we are ready with the draft, double check if it's relevant, yeah, if you have covered everything and so on. Then you may need to edit it, yeah, add some information or maybe remove some information, replace some information. And finally, you may have a final copy. Yeah, so you can see this circle, yeah, like a circle of all these stages. Well, this infographic is taken from the Jeremy Hammer's book, Essential Teaching Knowledge, like the Holy Bible for teachers, not only for the novice ones, for everybody actually. And as you see, so sometimes we may skip some stages, yeah, so we may be happy with our draft, yeah, and our draft is a final version. Yeah, so when we plan, yeah, we draft, then edit, or maybe we just plan and edit and so on. And then in reality, yeah, let's be realistic, let's be down to earth. So in your lessons, yeah, do you follow all these stages when you have a writing lesson? Yeah, so you can write yes or no, maybe plus or minus. Yeah. So do you follow all these stages in your writing lessons? Planning, drafting, reviewing, editing, and having a final copy. So do you do it? Only if I write a part of an essay. Okay, thank you, Natalia. Okay, not like when you write the whole text. Okay, good. So, any other comments? Try to. Okay, successfully, I hope. We need to prepare students for exams, and there is time is limited. Yes, Natalia. Yeah. Yeah. So if we have a lot of time, if it's just a regular writing lesson, then yeah, we can go through all the stages. But the reality is different. And especially, yes, I would agree that when we have exam preparation classes, then things are totally different. I also prepare students for exams, for international exams and Russian exams. And like as we have very, very strict time frames, yet like very tight time frames, in the exam, we actually don't have time to make a draft, to edit, and so on, then we should, of course, have less stages, a few stages. So first, planning should be very, very detailed. Yeah, and I usually recommend to create an outline, like a detailed plan for all the stages, for all the, parts of the text, and I usually ask my students to write phrases, some key ideas, justifications, and then also at this stage they may think what sort of more sophisticated language they may use. Yeah, they can write notes of what language they want to use and so on. And then when the detailed plan is prepared, then students can rely on it, and then it takes less time to write a final copy. So a final copy can be reviewed, and it should be proofread. Yeah, maybe there can be some changes, yeah, but pretty limited changes. And anyway, it can really help them save time. Yeah, and well, as you see at the regular lessons, yeah, we may also go through all the stages, but when we're preparing for exams, we need to be very, very careful with the timing. And let me show you some examples, like how all these stages can be scaffolded in course books. And the example which I'm going to share, like all the examples today, they will be from one series. It's Voices. It's a brand new series by National Geographic Learning. This series is for adult learners. Let me show you an example from the elementary level. So at elementary level, so students don't have quite a lot of resources and a lot of experience in writing text, so they definitely need a lot of support. So as you see, like first stage, we like introduce the context. Yeah, there is this nice photo. Then we set the context. So so here is an email, and the writer wants to find out some information about salsa classes. Yeah, and well, students do some pre-tasks. They do a listening task, find out what like the girls want to do, and then there is an email. Yeah, so like email which they later analyze. Then here is some more support, so writing skills. So the students get some support like with the cliche phrases that they need to use, and also they put all these phrases in order to get better aware of the structure of an email. Yeah, so again, support, yeah, and well, it is scaffolded. Then they also get acquainted with some useful language. Like, well, the purpose is to ask for information. Yeah, so that's the purpose of this email. And they learn or revise functional language that they can use in order to request some information. Then they have a kind of a template, yeah, which they need to cover to practice using the useful language. And then finally, they have well, an assignment, yeah, the task, the writing task itself. They have a choice, yeah, which is always really, really great for any age group. So people like when they have an illusion of having a choice. So because like anyway, they will need to write a text, but they can choose the context. Then they have a checklist, what they should remember. And finally, they exchange works and read partners' emails. So they make sure that the partner has covered all the points in the checklist and all the useful language. So like here, the review concerns so some target language that students should remember and should use. And also they see that review says that students should exchange emails and read them. And this is a very, very important feature of any writings, any works that we create. You know that we always write, yes, you remember from the definition, yeah, from the second slide, we write to express our ideas, to share, yeah, what we think. And we always write a text and we want this text to be read, even if it's a top secret entry in your diary. So you anyway want it to be read. Maybe the reader is only you. You don't want anybody else to read your entry. But anyway, we don't write text for the sake of writing a text. And so this ping pong, yeah, is important, that I write a text so that another person reads it. One more example from this series, but it's a pre-intermediate level, like higher level. And as you see here, again, the stages are scaffolded, and so students get acquainted with the context. Again, they read some prompts, read some models of the text that they need to create. And here, like the level is higher, yeah, and students are not only supposed to, write an email. Like, as you remember, at the elementary level, they have already learned it. But they need to get better aware of some other features. So here it's register, more or less informal register. And here they need to actually be able to make their texts more formal. And yeah, they're provided with some support. As you see, they have some, for example, some instances here in the useful language box, something informal and what you can do to make it more formal. And then students practice it a little bit. And finally, they write their own email and they need to make it a formal email. And again, exercise 10, as you can see, is a review. Yeah, and here students need to exchange emails, and then they need to check if their partner has included at least 3 things from the checklist. Yeah, and they should also comment on it, like note 1 thing on the email that you think your partner could improve. Yeah, so this is like peer feedback, very, very important thing. So, as you see, like, well, at the beginning of the session, yeah, when I asked you this question, like if you, like both you and your students find writing exciting, you enjoy it, yeah, there was plus minus. Yeah, so sometimes it's a minus because students are afraid of this process of writing. Yeah, and also because they are sometimes not provided with enough context, with the sufficient number of prompts, and they are not provided with support. Yeah, so that's why, as you see, if everything is scaffolded, if students get the necessary support, yeah, if the context is real life, and if they have a chance to maybe experiment a little bit with the language, then yeah, they will be happy. Yeah, one more important comment that I would like to make here. Yeah, you see review, yeah, when they are doing these reviews, they are just double checking the content, yeah, and some functional language. Also, at this stage, you may challenge your students even more and say, okay, like you have somehow commented on your peers' work, and then you can get your work back, look at your text again, and review it yourself. Think of some alternative options, like how you can, or you could have said things differently. Yeah, how could you have made this text like more formal when you were writing it? Yeah, I mean that you may suggest some language upgrade activities. Yeah, so that it all gets even more meaningful and more effective. Yeah, and by the way, yeah, Yana, I would like to hear from you. So can you please write a plus in the chat box if you do language upgrade activities with the texts that your students create? Yeah, so like usually there is error correction stage, yeah, so teachers usually assess students' works. Yeah, but do you do any language upgrade? Yeah, just plus or minus. Okay, so colleagues, you're very reluctant today, reluctant to speak. Yeah, so plus or minus, if you do some language upgrade at the end or not. Okay, thank you, Maria. Not really. Okay, one more plus from Alla. Okay, very good. Thank you, Natalia. Yeah. Great, great. You know that it's one more, hint for you. Yeah, so students find writing boring and demotivating if their works are just corrected. Yeah, if there is some follow-up work, yeah, if you do this, if you do language upgrade, your focus is on success. Yeah, not on mistakes, on failures, no, success. Yeah, and when students feel it, well, I have done this, it's okay, and I can do it better. Yeah, then of course they will have a totally different attitude to writing, to creating texts. Okay, thank you. And then like we may also use some other ideas, like how we can really help our students, how we can encourage them to write. So the first idea here, like we have already discussed it, like encourage students to do peer work, peer check, peer reviews. Especially it's vital when you prepare your students for exams. Yeah, they should know like what they're doing, and peer feedback is always great. You may ask them to give feedback to some, well, to a few, let's say, to a few parts of the text. So maybe applying just a few assessment criteria. Yeah, like as we saw on the previous slide. Yeah, just review, double check if your partner, your peer has used the functional language. Yeah, just something limited. Yeah, but still it's very nice, because then later they can give feedback to each other. And of course, you should encourage students to give self-feedback. Yeah, developing their autonomy. So then also one more idea, we have like partly discussed it. So let them play with the language and content. Yeah, at the stage of reviewing, maybe, yeah, at the preparation stage. Yeah, well, just I know that when we are preparing students for exams, we need to be very, very strict. Yeah, but writing is not only about assessing, you know, how well you can write. Writing is about creating text, sharing your ideas. Yeah, and then so students should be encouraged to well, to use the language, to attempt maybe new language, yeah, to paraphrase things and so on. I can see a comment here from Natalia. There can be a working gallery with students sticking hearts to the pieces of writing they like. Yes, yes, it's a fantastic idea. If you are teaching online, you can use a fantastic tool, which is Padlet. Like everybody can post their works there, and students can upload their works on the Padlet, and then so their peers may like them or write some comments. Yeah, and yeah, when they have created their text, especially if it's a very creative task, like they make a story, then yeah, there can be different nominations or categories. Yeah, yeah, that's really good. Again, if you do it this way, again, the focus is on success. Well, one more interesting idea, L1 activities. So I know that it can be a shocking idea for communicative teachers, yeah, but lexical teachers, they love it. And so sometimes students really need it. So because as you see, when we are producing some language, we of course use target language, or like the language that we have already learned, and we also attempt something new. And when they attempt new language, they lack it. Yeah, like if they haven't been taught this or that lexis, they like will never be able to use it. Yeah, so that's why you may ask your students at the preparation stage, for instance, when they're brainstorming ideas, and it's great, really good if you do it as a collaborative task. Yeah, you may say, okay, write some key ideas in English, and then write some phrases in Russian that you want to use, but you don't know. Yeah, and then of course you should monitor. And as if you see that they have a list of phrases in Russian which they should know, yeah, you can comment on it as well. But maybe they really need some language that they haven't learned. And then after that, you can provide them, like micro teach this language, and they will feel more confident, yeah, when they're writing their texts. Then there can also be some translation activities as well, but they should be meaningful. So we'll talk about them just a little bit later. Then one more important idea is that students should be working with text models. Yeah, we could see it when we were looking through the samples. Yeah, so students, especially at low levels or at high levels, when they are learning how to write a new genre of a text, they need to be provided with a text model so that they can read and like analyze the structure. Actually, so Evgeny was talking about it, yeah? So what we do when we read, and this is like a very detailed analysis in terms of like text structure, then also analysis of the discourse management, like how they organize the ideas, how they were developing ideas throughout the text, which linking words and phrases are used in order to connect ideas and have this, natural flow of them throughout the text. Picking out some functional language, some cliche phrases, and so on. Yeah, and some maybe good instances of the language that they want to remember or that they want to use later in their texts. Of course, they can be like the second way when it's a process writing lesson, when students need to create a text, having a clear task with clear prompts, but having no model. Yeah, when it's a process writing lesson, it's again vital that students are doing it as a collaborative task. And just don't underestimate the importance of collaborative work when students are doing any writing tasks. You will definitely have time and have a chance to, to get them to do everything individually with very tight time frames, especially if it's part of exam preparation, but also let them relax, let them collaborate, let them exchange ideas, and they will feel more motivated to create texts. And well, also talking about the cases when we prepare students for exams, yeah, then they should definitely know the assessment criteria. Yeah, that should be a fair play. So if you assess their works, then they should know what you assess in particular and how. And if we get back to point number one here, more peer work and peer check, self-check, self-feedback, yeah, then it's really vital that they know the criteria. Okay, and I also would like to hear from you. So here we have some basic ideas which can motivate students to write. Can you please write in the chat box? So some of one maybe idea from this list, or maybe a couple of ideas that you would like to try out with your students. So something what has given you some maybe food for thought, and you would like to experiment on it, with your students. Okay, thank you, Natalia Padlet. Yeah, it's a great tool. Yeah, maybe L1 activities. Yeah, thank you, Anastasia. Yeah, so L1 activities will really be beneficial, but if you are a very, strict communicative teacher who only uses L2, the students may feel a little bit shocked at the very beginning. Okay, thank you. So, anything else? Okay. Okay, I will move on actually. Yeah, but if you have some ideas to share, yeah, if you're just now typing, please feel free to share them. Collaborative writing. Oh yeah, thank you, Anastasia. Yeah, it's really beneficial, really. Yeah, like at each stage when they collaborate and write a text, actually anyway, the aim will be achieved. Yeah, they will produce a text at the end. Yeah, but collaborative work encourages peer work and peer support, let's say, and it's really good. Okay. Oh, thank you, Natalia, for sharing one more. Well, tool, great platform for collaborative work. Yeah, thank you. I have never heard of it, frankly speaking. So I will take note. Okay. Like if we dig deeper a little bit into like motivating students to write, you know that so writing is a productive skill, yeah, but it can also be a communicative. It can also be communicative. Not only speaking is communicative, writing can be communicative too. And I will share some ideas with you. So I hope that you will find them useful, and feel free to steal them, some of them or all of them. What you can do, so you see that you may get your students to exchange emails. You know, if it's part of Russian exam preparations or international exam preparations where students need to write emails, yeah, we usually have some prompts like write an email to your English speaking friend. Instead, you may encourage your students to write some emails themselves, and then they just exchange them. Yeah, and write a reply to the real email written by a real person. Or you may also suggest some websites where students can publish their works. Yeah, as you remember, like we write texts because we want people to read them. Yeah, and if it's an international website, so your work can be recognized, and it's really, really great. So then also students can, well, publish their texts in different like blogs, posters, or maybe in newspapers. As you see, like some years ago, that was the case at schools, like classes had a class magazine, and they would write something there. Yeah, so it's a good idea, and you may make it online, offline, and so students, there can be an editorial team, so students may write texts of different genres. It can also be pretty, encouraging. And it's also useful because if they do it, then they will experiment with different genres. So they will not only write something what they are required to write as part of their lessons or exam preparation. Yeah, so they feel relaxed, they can write something. Or maybe if, well, you may find a class magazine, so something, old-fashioned, out of date, okay, there can be a special page for the class on different media where they can write some blog posts, yeah, share their ideas and so on. So some teenagers really find it interesting, and they love sharing ideas in English. A few more ideas. You see that writing is not only the skill or like that we need to produce some texts as part of your work, yeah, like some exam preparation or something suggested by the course book. So there can be some other sub skills that we definitely need to develop. Yeah, so and writing can be combined with a variety of other works and other skills development. So, for example, students may need to read a text, for instance, and summarize the key points. Yeah, or put these points into a diagram, somehow classify what they have read. Yeah, they can also listen to something, watch a video, and then take notes, and then again summarize them. So writing can be part of project work. Yeah, they need to produce a piece of writing. So then there can be some translation. So if students are interested in it, so they can also read a text and then, for instance, make a summary of the text in Russian. Yeah, like it's a real mystery. Yeah, like what can happen? The students read or listen to some information in English, and then they want to report it back to the teacher and to the class in Russian. Yeah, I guess you can like recognize your students. Yeah, like, well, you have heard it in English. You have heard some ready-made phrases in English. Why are you using Russian? Yeah, to summarize the points. Okay, if they want to do this, yeah, then okay, you may let them do this. But okay, you summarize the key points and then translate them into English. Yeah, then maybe listen again or read again and find some better language for expressing this or that idea. Or find in the original text, find the language that you needed, but you failed to memorize because it was new, or maybe it was difficult language. Yeah, and then this way you are doing this language upgrade, and then also students are creating texts, brief text, but it's a very practical task itself because it's a vital skill that they need to have when they study at universities, for instance. So, and I see a comment from Natalia in the chat box. I sometimes recommend taking part in international essay contests, or we organize ones ourselves. Great, really fantastic idea. Yeah, so it's really great and it's very motivational. Yeah. So because they see that they are not writing works in order to discuss them here in the classroom. Yeah, and so they want recognition, so international recognition, and it's really great. So, well, and one more idea here, that students again may be encouraged to create texts which are not part of their exam preparation or their regular classes. Yeah, we write short texts, long texts in everyday situations. Yeah, so we may need to make notes, or we may need to write recipes, or write just some emails, fill in forms, and preparing some signs for the class, some announcement, and so on. Yeah, so encourage your students to write it in English as well. Some creative writing is also fun. Yeah, it's always fun, always fun. Even if students don't have ideas first, yeah, they know, like, it can be developed. Yeah, so if at least you have one key idea, thinking of possible justifications and possible ways of developing this idea can help them understand that writing is not that hard. Like, you can really build the whole text around one key idea. So a few more things to share with you. So you know that very often when we receive students' works, we check them. We may use a correction code, write some comments on, like, in the margin, but it can also be a good idea to make this more, this like assessment more collaborative and more communicative. Yeah, so for instance, your students have written a part of an essay and they have stated, like, their idea, providing some justifications. Good. You may write some notes there. Yeah, like asking some follow-up questions, asking maybe for clarification, or maybe introducing an opposing opinion. Yeah, so that when your student gets their work back, they see what they need to work on in terms of the language. Yeah, like, well, what sort of mistakes they need to correct. Not only language, also it can be structure and other things. And then they can also respond to it. Yeah, maybe like by asking these questions, you may encourage them to think again, and then maybe to change his or her mind, and maybe to state these ideas better, and so on. Then also you can encourage students to do things, yeah, to work in groups, yeah, and do collaborative writing, and also do, collaborative correction, reviewing, and so on. Any type of lessons. I mean, if it's a well, process writing, or if it's a product writing, or with the model, doesn't matter. And last but definitely not least, and I'm very happy to refer again to Evgeny's session on reading. Of course, writing goes hand in hand with reading. Not only because we play this ping pong, yeah. So when we write a text, like, we just throw the ball, but reading texts provides students with the language. Yeah, we cannot write about something. Yeah, we may feel lack of the language because we don't know it. And of course, we should encourage our students to read. Yeah, and then I like how it is stated here, that students will understand that good writing is a powerful and important communication tool. Yeah, you communicate your ideas, which are interesting. Yeah, that they're interesting to read. And one more life hack, one more activity, like last but not least, which I would like to share with you based on this statement, is actually team reading. You see that students are encouraged very often at schools. Yeah, I believe you also do this, to do extensive reading when they read for pleasure. Yeah, so you discussed it today with Evgeny. So they may read some stories and so on, but it doesn't work with everybody. However, we as teachers do understand the importance of this. So you may do the following. Ask students to read separate units or separate chapters in the book. Yeah, for instance, I read chapter number 3 only. Yeah, then my friend reads chapter number 5, and well, chapter number 4, doesn't matter. But well, every person reads one chapter. And then you may, like, it's a very interesting thing, because you see that I read chapter 3, but I see that I want to know what actually happened before and after. No, at least what happened before. So, and then I will, like, I'm very likely to read like chapter 1 and chapter 2. Maybe not. Yeah, and you may ask your students, yeah, to write a summary of this chapter. You see, like we discussed it today, just short summary using key ideas of what they have read. Again, picking out the language, yeah, and so on. And in the lesson, they share these summaries, but they need to collaborate, they need to introduce them, they need to speak. One more extension is that you may ask them to write, well, a summary, and then write briefly some key ideas, maybe not even a text, but ideas, what they think happened before and what they think will happen later. So that when they have the collaborative work in the classroom, they have a reason to talk, yeah, a reason to discuss what they have read and what they have found out. And then there will be a very good combination of reading and writing, and also, of course, speaking. Yeah, well, as you see today, like we have discussed, actually it was a brief overview of writing, because we can talk about it non-stop. I really love writing lessons. And today we have briefly discussed what writing is, what we actually need to develop when we teach writing. We discussed stages of writing lesson with some examples. And finally, we talked about the ways we can make writing more communicative, more meaningful, and more motivational. So, and I hope that I have given you some food for thought, some ideas to use with your students. And my message is teaching is, well, is all about experimenting, only experimenting with and on your students. So that's why don't be afraid, try out different things and you will see what works better for your students. Thank you very much. I will be very happy to hear from you. So if you have any questions, yeah, you can see where you can find me. So, yeah, I will be very happy to hear from you. Thank you very much. Thank you for being very, very supportive today. Enjoy your lessons and see you.
Thank you very much, Galina. Thank you. Really, really useful talk with lots of practical ideas. Very nice. I noted down some of them. Thank you. So, and I'd like to remind our participants that if you wish to get an electronic certificate of today's of attendance of today's webinar, please contact Galina. She will send you the certificate. Yes. In terms of the recordings and other issues, yeah, I'll put in the chat the link to the previous recordings of the season. It's on YouTube on my channel. You can refer to that. Actually, you can find the recordings of the previous season. Yes, our last year's teacher training program. So don't hesitate to explore that. And I'd like to remind you, for those who are interested in getting state recognized certificate, that we welcome you at our teacher training program. And here is the link once again. And our next webinar is supposed to be in May. Galina, do you remember the date?
Unfortunately, I don't.
Okay.
It's, yeah, like I guess like at the end of May. Yeah, we will announce it later.
Okay, yes, we will. So second part of May. Okay, if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the chat. And we hope to see you at our next webinar in May. And happy Easter to everybody. Happy Easter.